things, we're going to do some more things. What's happening is we have two board members who have to leave early and wanted to have an opportunity to participate in closed session, and that's perfectly normal. On the other hand, we have one director who's showing up in a matter of minutes who also needs to be part of that. So I'm proposing that we go into closed session at the front end and then follow through with the rest of the agenda. So that's my recommendation. If anyone would like to make that motion and second it, I'd appreciate it.
So moved, Garcia.
I'll
All right.
second. Shuto?
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Leon Garcia,
Or,
Mark Joseph,
yes.
Donald Williams, Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley, Ryan Gregory, Anna Shuto,
Yes.
Margie Muller,
Yes.
Robin McKeecant.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. With that in mind, we need to go through the protocols of, I think we have some comments for closed session that need to be acknowledged. Or
Right. I believe we received 2 written comments for closed session. Those are being made available to the board now and will be made available to the public. Also at this time, if there's anyone present that wants to make public comment on the closed session item, they may do so now.
Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Lynch, and I am on the Citizens Advisory Committee. And I just want to encourage the board to think seriously about having the NVTA be a convener in exploring whether or not a transit-operated development, transit-oriented development is possible here in Napa. Napa is in desperate need of housing to support its labor. I think that the NVTA is the perfect entity to reach out to various stakeholders many of whom have already discussed the possibility of employee housing, to try and put together, to explore whether there is actually public-private partnership possible to develop new housing in Napa. So I urge you to think seriously about this and to approve exploration of this possibility. Thank you very much.
thank you. Are there any other public comments relating to the closed session item? Anybody online? All right, then let's go into closed session. And I hope next month we will have an agenda process that runs smooth and all that. But with that in mind, let's go into closed session.
Fredo's gonna be here in 5 minutes. Yeah, he said 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. We are back in open session at 1:51. Council, can we get any reportable action, if any?
The board met in closed session on the item agendized, and there's no reportable action from closed session.
All right, thank you. Okay, now we're back to the agenda. We're actually at public comment. So is there any members of the public who wish to comment? Oh, that, although let me go back to adoption of the agenda, because there was one item I wanted to continue. So I,
One on consent.
one of the consent items, the piece, here it is, tight, 10-4. Before we adopt the agenda, I'd like to make one other change, and that is to continue item 10-4 to the next meeting.
Chair, we already adopted the agenda, so we may need to,
Well, then, when we, 10-4, the paratransit coordinating council member appointment. Okay, okay. You're right. Then maybe when we get to the hey, I screwed up. What can I say? Okay. I'll still pull that item when we get to it, even though we adopted the agenda under consent. All right. We're back to public comment.
we have none online and none in the boardroom.
And if I were watching, I wouldn't want to make a public comment right now either, because I would wonder what the chair would say. So, all right, we're plowing through. Let's now move to chairperson, board members, or MTC or ABAG comments. And as the chair, I'm laying low for the next 5 minutes. Any other board member comments?
I have a comment, Chair. I wanted to take a minute and thank the staff for something they did earlier this month. They very respectfully invited the Paratransit Coordinating Council to the new maintenance facility and did a really lovely tour, answered a lot of questions, and made a great presentation. And it was an effort on the part of people who are already super busy, and it's greatly appreciated.
Excellent. Thank you. And by the way, the ITALK, the independent tax, the ITALK group also met at the facility. So it was very thoughtful, very, very good idea. Thank you. Director Sedgley, did you have a comment?
Yes, yes. In September, I brought up Sonoma County's no fare program, pilot program for a year no fare. And it seems to be working very successful. So, later on in our agenda, we're going to hear a transit update on ridership. And I think one of our primary goals here is ridership, increasing ridership. And so in order to try to do that, I think if there's support for a future agenda item, to have staff look at what the impacts are of a no fare pilot program to see if we can in fact increase ridership. So that perception of our transit system not working well because, the ridership is fallen since the pandemic. We understand that. So if there's support of this board to bring that back for a future agenda item on how that would look, a pilot program for 1 year.
Well, I believe we could add that under 13 future agenda items.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other board comments? Then MTC comments?
Thank you, Chair. And I'll just say, I agree with Mayor Sedgley on this. I think we should actually look at what, reduced or free fares could do. I think that's part of our charge. So it'd be interesting to know the budget implications of that, but also the trade-off of what we could do for ridership, whether it's targeted to seniors or youth. I know there's other regions that have done that. I think that's really exciting to look at. On MTC, we did go dark officially, but we did have some meetings. As many of you know, we created a select committee to look at the fiscal cliff for transit operators. So we continue to look at a potential regional measure for 2026 of how do we work with our transit operators that are facing pretty significant fiscal cliff. That includes BART, Muni in San Francisco, Caltrain, the biggest operators in the region. And I know many of you may say, how does that involve Napa County? But it's an integrated system. It's all interconnected. And that's part of what we're trying to do at MTC and ABAG is how to make sure that we understand how the regions are interconnected. So we anticipate having a recommendation probably next month, if not the following, that goes to the legislator that ultimately would manifest in a bill that the legislator approves and gives MTC the authority to potentially do a measure that can include a sales tax or another measure to raise funds for the fiscal cliff that are facing our operators. We're also looking at where there can be more efficiencies among operators. That continues to be an issue for some of the senators and assembly members of encouraging more consolidation. And many of you may know, and maybe Mayor Garcia will talk about it in terms of the housing bond, the housing measure not going forward. I did ask MTC and ABAG staff to bring together the housing advocates and developers to really own what can we do around affordable housing. It's not always a function of more money. It's a function of maybe better policies that can make housing be built in our communities. So I did ask staff to kind of be the hub of that discussion. So anticipate some communication around MTC and ABAG for local communities. So I'm happy to answer any questions, Chair.
All right, that does bring us to ABAG comments.
Yes, the ABAG BAFA group withdrew the resolution to put it on the ballot. There was a lot of pushback in the communities. Unfortunately, that doesn't get rid of the problem. That just means we have to look at it differently. I think I appreciate Director Pedrosa's comment on that. Something we need to study more extensively about why the pushback and understanding the benefit. What we were talking about earlier, don't want to reopen that door, but we're discussing a very similar issue here in Napa. ABAG will meet tomorrow, and I'll have more to report back next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Executive Director's updates.
Thank you so much. So first off, we have two assistant planners, Adrell Coleman and Dexter Cypress, who have both been promoted to associate planner. So congratulations to Adrell. Sorry. So we've done a lot of meetings and hosted a lot of people at the facility this month. You mentioned two, PCC and the Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee were both at that meeting. But we also hosted the Citizen Advisory Committee at the Vine Maintenance Facility. And I think everybody is very impressed by the work that the NVTA team has made, and especially with Grant and Rebecca. And just thank you so much for being such great hosts. And also Libby, who's sitting back there, did a great presentation to the MTC's regional network management staff who came up for the day. And I think that we really hit it home on the work that we're doing. I think they were impressed by that. And I also think that, we were able to share with them some of the issues and challenges that we're having, primarily associated with our labor and technology. So I think they were pretty empathetic, and it was a good meeting. I also attended two transportation revenue measure executive groups at MTC. This is the committee that actually reports to the select committee that Director Petrosa sits on. We have, I think, one more meeting, and I think the select committee then is going to decide what to do from there. And so we will report back to you on whether there's going to be a future revenue measure introduced to and how that's going to go forward. I also participated in the August 29th Transit Transformation Task Force. This is the statewide committee that I have been appointed to. They have really started zeroing in on some of the requirements of Senate Bill 125. There seems to be a lot of, though, frustration among the transit operators that participate on this task force, because the discussion about new operating dollars has still not been had. So hopefully we will have that at our next meeting. Let's see. The new bus shelter at the Napa Valley College has been completed, and we are using it. And as a reminder, this is saving 200 minutes every week, and a total of what we calculated is 51,000 minutes over the year, which is going to save the agency $142,000 in operating funds. And then the Napa Valley Forward State Route 29 Rutherford intersection has been put on hold. As a reminder, the preferred alternative for that intersection is a signal, which is a safety improvement. A couple of factors are at play. First, many of the public comments received did not support the signal. One of the other drivers was to provide safe crossing or for bikes and pedestrians for the Vine Trail. And in giving the timing of that project, we think it would be better to focus the funds on the Oakville Compact Roundabout project, which has been supported by the adjacent property owners and the public. One of the challenges, though, is that the funding is about ready to expire, and so we're hoping to work with MTC to push that funding back so that we can identify additional revenues to complete that project that has an estimated shortfall of about $3 million. We're also waiting for Caltrans to clear the NEPA document so we can proceed with the right-of-way on that. And just a reminder that that's a Metropolitan Transportation Commission project, and we're just supporting the team on that. On August 16th, for those of you who weren't able to attend, the Vine Trail ribbon cutting in Calistoga was really quite a fun event, and thanks to the Vine Trail Coalition and for helping and supporting and making it really quite a party, quite a ribbon cutting. So we really appreciate that. And then on September 13th, the Soskel Junction ribbon cutting was at the Meritage, and we really appreciate the Meritage's partnership on that, and also Gelati Construction and GHD who helped fund that event, and that was also another great event and quite a milestone for the agency. And then Transit Month is this month, and we're doing a lot of different activities on that, and I'm just going to refer to Rebecca and her report, and she'll share all of those activities. We received, on another note, we received a $139,000 grant. You just acted on awarding a contract to Michelin. Yeah, it's the same people that tell us where to eat and also sell us tires. They also now are in the business of providing data, and the data is going to be it's very granular. You'll get a report on it, but they can actually now show where there's fast, immediate slowdowns and places where collisions could occur based on that, and also get at some of the things that we try to get at through SWITTers. But a lot of the collisions aren't reported, especially minor ones, but it will be able to really help us identify where there's some safety improvements. And we will use that both for our countywide transportation plan and also our Vision Zero plan updates. And then finally, Jackie Rhodes, who is a lifelong Vine rider and a walker, was sadly killed on State Route 29 by a hit-and-run driver as she was walking north towards the trail, which had not yet been opened. To memorialize Miss Rhodes, the Vine Trail and NVTA are putting a plaque on the Vine bench in front of Freemark Abbey, adjacent to the Vine Trail. So sad news, and we're doing what we can to make sure that her life and her death was not done in vain. And it was a hit and run driver, and I believe that person has been arrested, but it was just a horrible event, and we wanted to acknowledge Miss Rhodes and her commitment to being a clean transportation person. And then last but not least, I just wanted to acknowledge Emily Cherrier, who has done an amazing job organizing the two very big ribbon cutting events over the last month. I think she's tired. She took a day off. Both of the events were just really well done. So I just wanted to publicly thank you for all the work and the creativity that went into both events. So thanks, Emily. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Caltrans, do we have a Caltrans report? I see.
We do.
I see her on Zoom.
Daniel, can you hear us? It's on mute.
He's still muted.
Kathy, are you able to unmute Daniel?
Yes, Caltrans, if you can, here we go.
I wasn't aware of I was providing the report. I thought on mine it was. But hold on one second, let me bring up the.
Daniel, I'm sorry, can you speak a little bit more clearly? I'm going to pull up the Caltrans update now.
Give me a second.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, I thought Amani was gonna do the report, but, I'll do it, it's fine. So we have actually 3 projects in bid. I don't have any updates on this one, even though it's highlighted, 0.750. Or maybe you can mute Amani too.
Daniel, we're having a hard time hearing you, but we do have the Caltrans report update here, and it is in your packets. Yes. Did someone say Laura?
Can you
Yes,
unmute Amani? Yes, go ahead.
yes, thank you, thank you. If you would like, Daniel, you can continue. Yeah, I was actually not allowed to
Well,
participate.
we could hear you, Amani, so just go ahead and do it. 'Cause I
Go ahead,
wasn't-
Amani.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board. This is Amani Maligi, the Regional Project Manager for Napa County. I'm going to report the current status of the Caltrans project for the September. Currently, we have 34 active projects, 3 in the project initiation report phase. We added 1 additional project, which is an intersection improvement in Napa 29 at Pop Street in the city of St. Helena. And for the environmental phase, we have 7 projects currently. Just minor update on the first project, which is 2W880. This is a pavement preservation. A slight shift of the future milestones for the PSNE that will be completed in January 2028 and right-of-way certification by April 28 and also RTL by May 28. The other environmental projects are on track. For the design, which is the second page. Thank you. For the design, we have currently 9 projects, some updates on the Toloki Creek Bridge replacement. The design development will be completed by November 2024. And these projects, we requested 14 months time extension. So the right-of-way certification and RTL is target on May 2025. The second is the 0Q790. This is a storm damage in 5 locations in County of Napa. This is in order to construct a rock stop protection at 5 locations. And the PSNE is target next month, and the right-of-way certification RTL has been target to March 2025 with 12 months time extension. Going to the third page, there are the project 2J882. This is scour mitigation project for No Name Creek Bridge. The PSNE phase is target to be completed by next month, and the right-of-way certification RTL are target by August and September 2025. For J990 Ritchie Creek project to replace a bridge and improve fish passage. Again, the PSNE design is target next month. Finally, the Hopperslough Creek Bridge target for the design development by next month and right-of-way cert RTL by next year in May 2025 with a 14th month time extension. For construction projects, there are 2 projects that has completed design and moved to construction, and they are highlighted here in yellow. The first one is the 0Q820. This is a repair culvert. Currently, we got the approval of a 12.2 million supplemental fund request that has been approved by CTC in August 2028 for the construction support and capital. So we are going to replace the existing culvert with a reinforced concrete pipe that it goes for 1.4 mile and caused some failure to the and cracking to the travel roadways. The second is the storm damage in Napa County to construct pile wall at Sleep Out. The project has commenced construction in July 2024. The third is 3Q760. This is Rumble Stripes. The project currently is under construction and target to be completed by the end of this year. Finally, we have the Napa Valley Vine Trail that is under construction, and at the end of it, we are targeting to finalize the administration and expenditure by December of 2025. By this, I conclude my report, and I'm willing to take any comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Thanks for that report. I'm always very interested. I saw it on one of your previous slides at a previous meeting about timing the lights on 29 through Napa. Can you tell me if that's moving up the list?
May you repeat the question, please?
Yes. On a previous slide, we have a project to time the lights on Highway 29 through the city of Napa. Can you tell me where that is on your work plan?
Is it possible to identify the EA number or in which phase it is?
I didn't understand what you said. Is it on the list?
What's on the list are construction projects typically, so we'll work with the Caltrans and get back to you, Director Mueller, if that's okay.
Is it on the list?
I don't think so, no. I mean, I think it's probably on a list, but this is shop projects.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be
Yeah.
necessarily a shop project.
Okay,
Yes,
so we don't know.
Thanks, Kate.
We'll find out.
Yes, thanks, Kate. I will follow up because this list actually is related to the active projects. There are some projects within Napa that is considered maintenance projects, and some of them are director orders. So we are going to check on the projects you are referring to. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, we'll move to the consent calendar. I have indicated I would like to continue item 10.4. Are there other requests to continue an item?
I'd like to pull 10.7 for discussion.
Okay. All right, if there's no others, then I would make a motion or entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar except items 10.4 and 10.7.
So move Sedgley.
Second, Garcia.
All right, all those, and we don't need a roll call for everything, so, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Very good. Director Sedgley, do you want to discuss 10.7 when we're talking about the other Vine Trail item? Or
Well,
do you
no,
wanna
we
carry
can
that?
address it here
Okay.
and let the board,
Okay,
you know, move the item or not.
All right.
But yeah, the reason for the discussion on it, you know, it ties in with the later items in our agenda on the agreements and the settlement contracts that we have with that St. Helena Calistoga leg. And I was surprised to see it on consent, but I guess that has to do with maybe the authority of the executive director to authorize those changes if it's a dollar amount. I usually see that. And
Yeah.
so I'm not sure how to end up consent, but the concern, and maybe I'll discuss it more on the items 11.3 on the settle agreements, is the next segment from, you know, Yountville to St. Helena. How is this authority going to protect itself on these kind of overruns? Because this is alarming. This is some real stuff. And that was my only concern for pulling it off, just to tie it in with both the 11.3 and this 800 and something $86,000 addition to a total of over $1.1 million. So
okay.
that's it. Other than that, if there's no more discussion, I'll move the item.
Okay, anybody want us, did you, is your light on for comment or?
Nope.
Just, okay. Then we have a motion by Sedgley and a second by Gregory to approve item 10.7. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Approved. Very good. All right, now we move into regular agenda items. 11.1 is Amendment 9 to the Napa Valley Transit Authority or NVTA Agreement 12-08 for the position of Executive Director. Osman, if you'll introduce the topic.
Yeah, so the board conducted the executive director's performance evaluation at the June and July board meetings. The executive director's employment agreement with the agency is set to expire December 31st of this year, so December 31, 2024. Following direction during closed session, the committee of the board led by the board chair entered into discussions with the executive director regarding an amendment to the director's employment agreement. At this time, I'll ask Chair Joseph if he wants to share the recommendation from the committee and following direction received in closed session.
Okay. The committee had recommended two adjustments. The first was to provide a 5% cost of living increase. And then second, to provide for the one-time IRS catch-up. The current limit is $7,500. The language, I believe, makes reference to what that might be because every year it's adjusted. And so those are really the only two adjustments. All the other provisions are the same. And to remember that this is essentially a 6-month extension. So all the numbers are essentially, only 1/2 of that amount will actually be expended. I'm not sure if there's any additional clarification on what the proposal is.
On the employee maximum contribution, what is that?
So each year, the 457 plan, the IRS sets maximum contribution limits that can be made. I believe the numbers for 2025 do not get released until November. So the agreement was to fund 50% of the 457 plan contribution and then 50% of the catch-up provision, which is currently that number's 7,500, I believe, for the catch-up.
That one.
It may change in 2025, but those numbers again are not out. They'll be released, I think, in November. So,
And, but I go back to the original
Sure.
question, what is the current
Okay.
maximum contribution amount?
so the current maximum contribution for both catch-up and the regular is 30,750.
Yeah, and 30.
37,000.
And to be clear, the 23,000, the IRS or the ongoing 457 contribution, that has been part of her contract all along. What is new in this 6-month transition contract is that catch-up provision. Basically,
Right, 7,500.
yeah, allowing you to catch up for the years you didn't contribute.
So the current maximum that I could contribute if I'm an employee of NVTA is $30,000 on a deferred comp. And then the authority,
30,500, yeah.
and then the authority picks up a half more.
No,
For half of
No,
that.
no, I think we're contributing the maximum amount towards
yeah.
the contribution as well as the maximum amount towards the catch-up. The catch-up is what's new. The maximum has been there.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And before I entertain any comments, I just wanted to make my own perspective on this. And that is that this is what I would call a transitional contract. Our executive director is planning on retiring in 8 months or whatever, June 30th. And so a lot of times when you're dealing with that transition, you aren't looking at necessarily what's a long-term compensation plan. And I do believe there's two things to consider. Number one, you want to pay your executive director for a job well done. In the last year, we've wrapped up the maintenance facility, we've wrapped up Vine Trail, and we've wrapped up Sosco Junction. Those are big jobs. And I subscribe to the theory that if a manager does a great job, they ought to get something in their compensation package. So I'm driven much more by results than effort. And the second point is, it is a transition. Our executive director is retiring. And this allows us to operate in a timely manner, to put together a recruitment for her replacement, to do it all seamlessly and without a lot of chaos. And in my mind, having gone through that, I've already obviously demonstrated enough chaos as your chair. I don't want to add more by having an executive director that we're just scrambling to fill. So in my mind, this is a reasonable proposal, and it addresses those two elements of job well done and facilitating a seamless transition. With that, I'll entertain any motions. Director Eisenberg. Oh,
Just question.
yeah.
Okay. So the purpose of, and as you were stating, the purpose of the extension is to give us adequate time to find a replacement. So my question is, where are we in the process? And if we haven't started, when are we beginning? And how, I want to make sure that we have a very comprehensive look and take advantage of the time that this extension gives, but not to be slow just because we have the time.
I fully agree. There has been some discussion about that, and I don't believe it's on tonight's agenda, but we need to get that ball rolling. I know that staff has been doing a lot of preliminary work, trying to solicit proposals for an executive recruiter. We have some ideas. I'm not sure where we can bring that up.
That would be, it would be on a future agenda. It'd be October, but just to the chair's point, that staff is working on it, and it'll be brought before the board, kind of an action plan as to that at the next meeting. So.
Right. I do remember we had talked earlier when having this discussion about time for the board to provide comments about what we're looking for in an executive director, and I don't want that to get lost either.
Right. That can be on the next agenda as well.
Okay. Thank you.
You know, I'm happy to make a motion, Chair, at the right time, and I'll just say this, you know, I wouldn't call it a transition contract, I'd call it an earn contract. You know, Director Miller knows her and I haven't always seen eye to eye on things, but what I do know is that this agency has come a long way from when we first started. And the fact that you've been the leader in that journey, and you've positioned this agency to deliver projects like Sosco Junction to the tune of $60 million, or negotiate RM3 that got us $20 million when, in fact, we could have gotten zero or get money from the region. I think that's a tribute to having good leadership and a good board that supports you as well. So I just want to take time, because there's been mention about your retirement, and there'll be a proper time for that. But every step of the way, you've earned this. And that's the right message to send to you, but to anyone that follows you. And I do agree that I won't be here, but whoever's here, that you set the baseline for whoever comes into this job. It's not that this is the new norm. We've done that at MTC where we've brought in people below what was the previous executive getting. That's a function of paying for what you get. And we've all dealt with that in our municipality. So again, I don't want this to get laced as it's your going away gift. This is a recognition of the contributions you've made to this board, but also the people in Napa Valley that have benefited from your leadership and the projects we delivered in our community and the projects that we plan to deliver, because we're already hearing about the Sosco roundabouts, but also what's happening up north in the city of Mary Garcia or the county. And we have a long ways to go. So we have more work to do. So thank you for that. So that's a motion at the right time, Chair.
That's a point well made.
It's your city too.
I'll make the second, but
Okay.
I also just wanted a quick note. The other thing, Kate, that I appreciate about your leadership, and I too think that this reflects the leadership, are the small things as well. It was one of our police officers who found Jackie Rhodes, and he was the idea that he wanted that acknowledgement of her, and you just take those ideas and you make it happen, and it means a lot to our communities, not only the big projects, but those small things as well. So I'm happy to second this.
Okay, then we have a motion and second to approve the agreement number 9 is submitted.
One second. So a motion, I have to read a disclosure for the Brown Act prior to taking action. So A motion has been made by Director Pedrosa and seconded by Director Shuto to approve an amendment to the Executive Director Kate Miller's employment agreement pursuant to Government Code 54953C3, an oral summary of a recommendation for final action to a local agency executive's compensation must be made prior to taking final action. The motion before the board is to amend the executive director's employment agreement to provide an additional 6 months term through June 30th, 2025, and adjust the annual salary to $282,360 effective January 1st, 2025, and contribute 50% of the not to exceed IRS maximum annual contribution limit for 2025 to the executive director's 457B plan and 50% of the maximum 457B age catch-up for 2025. All other terms and conditions of the employment agreement will remain the same.
And is that a roll call requirement or just?
It's not a roll call,
Okay.
just,
Then
yeah.
we have a motion in the second. We have a declaration there. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're on to item 11.2, bilingual outreach coordinator staff position. Danielle Schmitz, take it away.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Joseph, members of the board. Danielle Schmitz here to present item 11.2, the addition of a full-time bilingual outreach coordinator position to the agency, which will replace the part-time bilingual outreach coordinator that we have a contract for currently, as well as the consultant that conducts our V-Commute program, which is our transportation demand management program, going out, meeting with businesses, getting employers to sign up to our alternative transportation program and our V-Commute platform. In August of 23, NVTA identified a need to have better Spanish communications, especially to schools where oftentimes our transit staff, so our transit manager, Rebecca, and other transit planners would have to go out to schools, provide information on transit options and transportation demand options. And many times we would have to bring Spanish speaker along with us because we do have staff in-house that can speak a little bit of Spanish, but to have a conversation in fluid Spanish is something different. And so we'd have to bring, outside help to help with that. And we've had great success since we had this part-time position part-time position contracted since August of 2023. In fact, we've increased our outreach events by 200% since that last year. And in addition, we're able to do travel trainings, and many times travel trainings, which is somebody going out, helping somebody use the bus, how to pay for the bus, where to look on the schedule, where to look on the NVTA or Vine website of where you're going. Many a times those travel trainings are needed in Spanish. And so we have found that we feel that Spanish-speaking population has the largest potential for future ridership growth. An example of this is the recent La Onda Festival that had similar bus ridership numbers over the 2-day festival event that Bottle Rock did over the 3-day festival event. So we do feel like if we brought this position in-house, we'd be able to, increase the amount of outreach and communication to the Spanish-speaking population. So it wouldn't just be translating Spanish or translating our marketing and outreach materials to Spanish, but it would actually be targeting Spanish advertisement and marketing and reaching out to that community, which may look different than our current marketing efforts. In addition, we found that even though we had this contracted V-Commute program manager service, we needed in-house staff to still troubleshoot some of the back-end things like our V-Commute platform, as well as customer service, provide customer service on the phone. And that's taking resources away from other staff members that we have that are doing a myriad of other different tasks and assignments. And so we really feel that bringing both of these positions in-house instead of contracting them out is going to be beneficial to the agency, to the community, and to the writing public. And so as mentioned in the staff report, this position is net zero to the budget. We are eliminating the part-time contract for bilingual services and also eliminating the contract for the V-Commute consultant. And then we will be adding this position to our budget. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have on this item.
So, and I would really emphasize the fact that it's a net zero fiscal impact, because my first reaction when I saw the report was, how can we afford another body? But that's been addressed. And the other point is, this is an outreach person who will be bilingual versus the idea that we're just hiring somebody whose sole function is to translate. So
Correct. So this, I mean, the two main functions for this position will be the V-Commute program, and there's overlap, right, between our V-Commute program, which is going out, meeting with employers and employees, getting them registered, tracking trips, helping them carpool, ride match. It will be that, as well as being able to be our Spanish bilingual outreach coordinator.
Right. Okay, very good. Any questions? Dr.
Yes,
Williams?
yes, thank you. So what are the measures of success for this position? How do we know that there are, successful endeavors going on here? And is this a permanent position that we're contemplating, or is this one that has a sunset?
No, so it's two currently contracted out, not full-time positions that we are creating a full-time position. And I would say some of the measures of success are what I just illuminated to, which is, when we brought on a part-time bilingual outreach coordinator, we were able to increase the amount of events that we were present at, Dia de la Muertas up Valley, by 200% compared to when we didn't have this. We also were able to conduct 35 plus more travel training trips. So I think that hopefully we'll be able to say, I talked a little bit with Rebecca about this, to say we're going to, link it specifically to transit ridership. There's so many other factors that influence transit ridership, but I think some key performance indicators could be things like the amount of events attended, the amount of hits we're getting on our website, on our marketing materials, and those kinds of things, to make sure that we're really reaching out into the community. In addition, our V-Commute program, I think we'll be able to look there and see real results as far as how many registered users there are with the V-Commute program, how many trips that they're tracking alternative transportation use on. So those are the kinds of indicators that this position would be measured on.
So remind me about the V-Commute.
Mhm.
Yes, tell me more about that, please.
So the V-Commute program is a program that we incentivize for people to take alternative transportation trips, whether it be on our bus, by biking, walking. We have a bike share program, or excuse me, is it called? Yes, it is called bike share. It's a bike share program where we provide incentives for people to purchase a bicycle. We provide a stipend for them, and then they have to track their bicycle trips to work over a certain amount of time. We do carpool and ride matching for people, all on the V-Commute platform, which is a website platform that we use to help manage that program.
And so is there increased V-commuting as a result, use of the?
Right. So the hope is if we were able to bring on somebody, full-time that's working on this program, we would see an increase in not only registered users or registered applicants of the V-Commute program, but we'd also see an uptick in actual trips made using alternative transportation. And they would have to log it on the V-Commute program platform.
Director Pedrosa.
I think the outcome and the performance measurements are totally appropriate. But to me, I think about just culturally, the Latino community, the Hispanic community is someone that is predisposed to transit, especially when you visit some of the, the home countries. So I think this is an incredible opportunity to try to serve a community that's already predisposed to transit. It's in La Onda, to me, is just an example of when it is convenient and accessible, folks will ride transit. And the Hispanic community, Latino community is no different, but being able to be targeted, I think, is an incredible opportunity, especially when you know that it's 32% of our population through the census. Is probably higher through the non-census. I think this is a really great opportunity to know how targeted outreach could work.
Yes, and you just reminded me of something which I think would then also answer some of your question. When we do some surveys, we do onboard surveys, or we send out general surveys, we get very limited Spanish input and responses, but we know that 30-40% of our ridership right now is Spanish speaking, predominantly Spanish speaking, or Spanish first language speakers. So. we would like to see that increase too, so we can know how we can increase service and better service.
All right. Oh, Director Sedgley.
It sounds like we're looking just at biliteracy in English and in Spanish. Other languages, I don't know what, in American Canyon, we have,
Third language in American Canyon is Tagalog.
Yeah.
Filipino.
So if we're looking at an FTE to be this outreach, would
Well,
want
it
to.
might be worth looking into. I would point out that the population that has moved into the United States, the home country, they have their original dialect, of which there are 100 different ones. Everybody learns the national language, which is Tagalog. And in school, they all learn English as well. So many of the workforce coming to town, it's the elders who may not have had that opportunity, who do not speak English.
Yeah, the next generation always benefits, but I'm just working about the senior population and stuff. Who's reaching out to your community down there and in their language?
It's considerable about it, but the school district some years ago did a language survey of languages spoken at home in American Canyon.
Okay.
38.
So you're saying it's not needed? You're saying it's not needed to have?
Don't know. If you
bilingual
wish
in
to find out, there's probably some way to get at that. That doesn't require a great deal of work, but yeah.
I would agree with Director Garcia. It would certainly be nice to have someone who can speak Tagalog, but I suspect that the greater need is for somebody from the Spanish-speaking community is probably the one that's more constrained.
That's a larger one in American Canyon.
Yeah.
Most certainly.
Okay. And unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of being able to hire two people. So I think if we've got to pick one, it probably ought to be Spanish.
I would just say that, we're federally required to communicate with both communities.
Right.
And I think that the amount of feedback or the lack of feedback that we have received from our Spanish-speaking community just says to us that we're talking at them and we're not really communicating and understanding the culture. And having a staff member on board that can really understand the work we do and really learn it, I think is going to be very helpful to really reach out and do a better job and understanding the culture a little bit better. That's not to say that we wouldn't do that with the Filipino community, but so far, I think we get pretty good representation from that community, both on our committees, and we don't see that same participation among the Spanish-speaking community. So that is the reason why we've prioritized this.
I think just to add to that picture, the Asian population in American Canyon is about 36%. It's predominantly Filipino. We put a lot of our notices in English, Spanish, and Tagalog out of respect for a community, knowing that there might be elders in the household who may not be able to understand other than that.
Okay, well, very good.
I would just like to, I've seen examples of where this works. So I think this is going to be great, both in our public schools up in St. Helena, when they switched to have a community outreach person that was from the Hispanic community, and just who showed up to the events was dramatically different, and who now started to engage in the process. And I would say the same thing. We had an incredible independence celebration at our St. Helena Public Library, and we engaged so many more of our community members. And it's because of our librarians who are on our staff who make that happen and reach out to the community, understand how to communicate. It's what we do best. It's available to everybody. And you can really see the difference that happens when we have somebody in this position. So it's great. I
Perfect.
can make a motion if we need
All
it.
right. Well, let's see if there's any public comment first.
Okay.
Anything online or in the audience? No. Okay. Then I would be happy to entertain a motion.
So I will move that we move forward on the recommended action.
All right. Do
I'll
we have a-
second.
Robin McKee can't. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. We are now to item 11.3, the Vine Trail St. Helena to Calistoga construction contract claim settlement and budget increase. Grant.
Good afternoon, Director, excuse me, Chair Joseph, Vice Chair Chateau, and directors of the board. My name is Grant Bailey. I'm the Program Manager Engineer with Napa Valley Transportation Authority, and the item before you today is a request for an additional $1.9 million in construction funding. There are two parts, or the 1.9 million can be broken down into two parts. The first is the construction claim that was submitted by Gelati Construction to NVTA through our construction contract. The $1.1 million is compensation for time-related overhead impacts or delays to the contractor as a result of delays to the contract from PG&E unknown utilities that were encountered through the project. NVTA Gelati Construction submitted this claim to NVTA in full and final form in May of this year. The initial claim submittal was $1.6 million, also requesting approximately 270 additional working days. And NVTA, with the assistance from our claims consultants at TY Lin, as well as our construction legal experts at Hanson Bridget, entered into negotiations with Gelati, and were able to reduce this claim amount from 1.6 million to 1.1 million. Some of the other terms that we've tentatively agreed on pending board approval include an additional 106 working days granted to Gelati Construction to bring their schedule consistent with the number of working days we've been tracking, and so there are no additional delays. Gelati also committed to having the Vine Trail substantially complete on August 15th in advance of the August 16th grand opening date, which they succeeded in. Gelati is also committed to having construction close out completely on the project by December 6th, and we're tracking mid-October at this point. NVTA is also committed to paying the $1.1 million by the end of this month, pending board approval. And Gelati also agrees to release all future claims associated with PG&E utility conflicts should the board approve this claim. The claim agreement in draft form is submitted part of this board package and is available for your review if you so choose. The other part of the requested $1.9 million is $800,000 in additional construction contract costs. Before I go into this, I would like to acknowledge, before we go into the details, that leading up to the completion of construction, it became clear, staff had originally expected that we would remain within our construction contract contingency with the known issues. However, once we began paving within the last 2 to 3 weeks of construction, and I'll also note paving is a very resource and funding intensive operation. Once you start, if you stop, there's significant delays to your project as well as remobilization costs to your contractor. And so we started paving operations, and we were notified by our contractor of significant design omissions, specifically around a number of driveways along the highway, along the trail alignment that were just not designed as part of the original project. The consequences for moving forward and not constructing the driveways would have been non-compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, which would have led to a very high level of risk, not only to NVTA as the lead agency in construction, but also the county and the Napa Open Space District as the agencies that will be taking over this project to maintain in the long term. There are other costs that we were made aware of as well associated with paving, such as once paving was complete, it was clear that there was a significant overrun in our paving quantities. What that means is in the base cost, or in the base contract, we had a known amount of paving we planned to do, and we far exceeded the estimated amount of paving. And so that led to automatic cost overruns in our project. There are a couple of other issues too, and I can discuss those in greater detail if the board has questions. But given these issues and the timeline, which was set for the grand opening of August 16th, Director Miller and I were faced with a decision to stop the project and incur additional costs for delay and remobilization. And likely we would not have completed the project today had we not moved forward. So choice was stop the project or authorize work to continue beyond the board-approved construction contingency. Director Miller and I did make the decision to take a strategic risk and move the project forward in an effort to meet the committed funding, or excuse me, the committed grand opening deadline. And that is why we're here in front of you today, asking for additional funding to compensate the contractor for work that has already been completed.
Just some clarification. I mean, just to be very clear that $1.1 million of this additional funding is something that we are hoping to receive back from PG&E. I also wanted to acknowledge Grant for negotiating $500,000 off of that agreement with Gelati Construction. Well done, Grant. And then just acknowledge Grant for continuing with this project, which has been a terrible frustration on all of us working on it. And it's taken a lot of time and effort, and we knew it would. But again, we find ourselves here because we're trying to basically rescue grant money. So with that, I'm sure you have a number of questions and comments of both Grant and me.
And I would want to emphasize that there would, basically, what would our options have been had there, for example, been an emergency meeting of the board to say, hey, here's our problem? Did we have a lot of choices? I know that's rhetorical, but.
No, you wouldn't have probably. I mean, we have to complete the project. I mean, it would have been, don't complete the project, which I don't think is something that, I mean, we'd probably had to give the grant money back if we didn't complete the project. I suppose I can acknowledge that we should have made a bigger effort to try to hold an emergency board meeting. But I think given the time that would have taken to coordinate, plus time to pull together the documents and to notice to the public, we would probably have only found ourselves meeting maybe last week.
Right.
I don't know for sure. I'm just speculating, but yeah, that was the thinking.
Okay. And I would tend to agree. In my mind, a deliberative body has to have options. Otherwise, I think there would have been additional costs incurred, certainly delays incurred. So this has been a challenging project. Remember the last segment, there were challenging elements. The Vine Trail is an incredible asset, and when it's done, everyone will be excited, and there'll be a handful of us who will say yes, and it was a challenge every segment of the way. I appreciate everybody who has hung in there, who's done what they had to do to make it happen. So I, for one, am very appreciative, no matter how much of a headache it is to get there, because it's going to be that much of an asset for this community. And with that, I'm happy to entertain comments, which Director Williams.
Yes, thank you, Director. We share your frustration, Kate, but thank you for bringing this to our attention. Thank you for your work on it. And we understand that there's a request for additional funding. But I understand now, I've learned that our city of Calistoga and the others involved are contractually bound to continue to fund the project as it continues. Am I correct in that we're bound by the contract to support this?
I believe there's a clause in the funding agreement that the previous funding agreement the city of Calistoga approved is that saying something to the effect that should future costs arise, the city commits to partnering with NVTA to fund those costs.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So we really have to do this regardless. Legally, we have to be supportive of this.
I'll defer to our legal counsel on that.
Oops. All right, yeah. Yeah, that's Grant's understanding or summary is consistent with my understanding of the agreement. There is language to that effect in all the funding agreements that there's a commitment to support future funding if necessary, if there's an overage. So
And then I guess my question is that forever? Or when does that obligation terminate? When is that extinguished?
My understanding is it's only for this segment of the trail between St. Helena and Calistoga. And so I believe that agreement could sunset as soon as we issue a notice of completion, which I intend to bring to the board next month.
Okay, great, thanks. And the staff report says that the city has agreed to this, the funding. And my concern was that's not in reference to our present city council, but in reference apparently to the contract that's in force.
Yeah, and I think that I could have clarified that language. I think there's been an expression of partnership. We had a verbal discussion with you, Director Williams, and then your city manager and public works director as well.
And then there's reference in the staff report to design errors and an estimate of around 800,000 or so. I'm sorry. The design errors.
Yeah.
So the question is, what efforts are appropriate to make to recover or to compensate the Vine Trail project for those errors? As Chair Joseph mentioned earlier, effort is one thing, but performance is the measure of success. And so my question is, and the public will ask me, why are we paying for someone else's errors?
yeah, we're currently looking into the contract and the options under the agreement and expect an item to be on a future board agenda, kind of discussing this issue.
And that's in reference to the design issues?
Yeah, to the design issues.
So
Correct.
Staff is looking into the likelihood or the
Correct.
appropriateness of pursuing recovery?
Yes.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Any other?
I'll follow up right along the line. Thank you, Director Williams. Right, so we're talking litigation. Is that what we're talking about? Both PG&E and the engineering firm? That's probably where it ends up, litigation?
That's worst case scenario. Yes, potentially. The PG&E claim, I think they're working on, so that's in motion. The design claims or potential claims are being evaluated at the moment, and then we're assessing options in terms of what's the best course of action. So, but yeah, that's
the PG&E. We haven't even submitted the claim for that yet. PG&E asked us to wait until we were completely done with the project, and we are going to submit the claim to PG&E, which is based on an MOU that we have with them at the end of this month. And so we'll know more, but we have hired, legal counsel specific to construction to help us with that. But right now we're not litigating against PG&E.
Thank you. And as I said earlier, it's just as the next phase and the Vine Trail is an amazing asset in our community, but sometimes I'm asked an asset to who, right? It's, who does use it? It's not our transit people generally. It's who uses it. So it's our Director Eisenberg uses it obviously, and I do too. But that's my concern is the next phase. How do we protect ourselves? What lessons learned? Obviously, I think we'd go with a different engineering firm. I'm not sure. I think we would, but I mean, we need to protect ourselves. I don't know where the project started for the next phase. Where are we in the next phase? No, nothing is done yet on funding and how we're going to do that.
So as far as I'm concerned, this agency's done doing any of the delivery on the Vine Trail. So, I think the county is working on the project that's connecting Yountville to St. Helena. I know American Canyon have some bits and pieces that they have to finish, and then there's the segment between River Sound and where the Vine Trail stops at Dublin Road. So all of those projects are being done by other agencies, unless this body obviously directs us to do it, but I would probably struggle to find an engineer to
Yeah.
help out. Yeah, so.
Okay. Thank you for that. That helps.
And I think we need to remember there was also, weather issues that got into the mix. PG&E not getting their project done before ours started. So it's been a whole bunch of adventures, all of which have unfortunately forced that price up. And hopefully we'll recover enough from PG&E and others to at least offset some of the increases that St. Helena, Calistoga, and the county have been able to advance to assist in getting this project done. We have
Yeah, I was
Director
recording.
Eisenberg.
No, I did ride the Vine Trail today from Calistoga as much as was available to this location here. It was a wonderful experience. And it was unfortunate that I had to endure the St. Helena to Yountville section, but at least there's a nice wide shoulder there. So I felt relatively safe, and I'm used to riding on roads. So the Vine Trail is wonderful. I've been on the Calistoga to St. Helena segment probably 12 times at least, and I'm truly enjoying it. It is unfortunate that the increase in cost turned out to be so high. And I know we have to pay Gelati. They did a wonderful job. I'm very pleased with that. I'm pleased with the trail. And I understand from the agenda that we will have a claim to PG&E within 12 days. Okay, and that's good. I'm really encouraged by that. I just would like to remind staff that PG&E is not the most responsive agency to claims, and there is a good chance that we will have to be incredibly aggressive in order to get our claim back. And this is very important, I know, to Calistoga and St. Helena. And I encourage staff to be absolutely as aggressive as possible. And if it comes to the board having to discuss litigation in closed session, I strongly urge you to proceed that way with all speed if necessary. And as far as the planning and omissions from the design agency, I believe it's exactly the same thing. We need to pursue every possible manner to recoup the money that it is costing the jurisdictions, and a business has a responsibility to come through and perform. So again, I urge staff, pursue this as strongly as possible with all your legal might. And if it comes to litigation, I'm looking forward to the closed session where we can discuss it. But thank you to all of you who work so hard to make the Vine Trail. It is a great, great trail, and I look forward to its completion in the future sometime.
Director Pedroza.
Thank you, Chair. As someone that's done the dance with PG&E, it's long, it's prolonged, and it's messy. So I just hope we don't have to get there. Look, we have to make this happen. And as someone that has been a fan of the Vine Trail, and I know there's representatives there, I think we all share the frustration with the costs. but it's a community asset. And I'm reminded of when many generations before us they were doing BART and it was a tube to nowhere and everyone was complaining about how expensive it was to do BART, and look at it now. It's one of those investments that you can look at the lens of how it works today or the economics of today. It's the economics of tomorrow and the future. And that's the way I look at the Vine Trail. It's an asset for generations to come. It hurts because of the cost per mile and all the other issues that we have in our communities, but it's the right investment to make. And all you got to do is just drive down 29 and Silverado Trail and look at the crosses for the people that pass away on those trails because they don't have a safe trail. We're all reminded of that. And that's personal to me for different reasons, but I'm a fan of it. I think the question I would ask is, what oversight is there to ensure that we try to minimize exposure along the way? And I get that there's different municipalities delivering it, but there kind of needs to be an adult in the room overseeing it to make sure, because I appreciate the private sector doing what they're doing, and the private sector has done tremendous in this job. But the private sector can't come and say, then you bail us out. So I'm looking at staff. Are you comfortable and confident with the oversight that exists today on even parts that we don't fund? But I am concerned because us as government sometimes then are the ones asked to fill the gap.
Well, just in response to that, I think the answer to that is yes, that we are doing the best we can with what we have to work with. We've already mentioned that there has been a number of design issues, bad weather, as someone else, I think Director Joseph, our Chair Joseph mentioned. And, you know, given all of that, and also I would just remind the board that we would have lost $6.5 million in grant funds had we not moved forward with what I thought was a pretty low contingency, but this board acted to support that. We were very transparent about where we were on the amount of money that we had. So, and I think we were meeting before this meeting with the Vine Trail Coalition folks, who I think probably want to comment, that the project has gone over the contingency, but in the scheme of things, it hasn't been horrible, especially if you were to factor out the Vine or the PG&E amount. So, you know, it's just an unusual circumstance. We had entered into an MOU with PG&E and they didn't honor it. They had multiple delays, which cost the project that much money. And we wouldn't be here right now if it hadn't been for that. So I think our team is doing a great job under the circumstances, and because of the nature of this project, a really good job, an excellent job.
I appreciate that, Director Miller. And I'm not, look, we can't control what we can't control. You're dealing with different agencies. My question is on the areas that we can control, that there's collaboration from us and the Vine Trail, and the Vine Trail is reaching out to government to minimize any exposure and cost overruns. Again, the numbers aren't going to work today and they're not going to look great, but this is not an investment for just today. It's something that's going to be here for generations to come. So thank you.
Any other comments? Then open it up for public comments.
Hi, folks. I'm not sure you wanted to see me today, but it's just a little bit disappointing that in the first board meeting after that we completed the Vine Trail, we aren't able to celebrate because of the issue around how much it's costing. And I have a couple thoughts, and I'm going to start with, and there's a set of slides that I think you have. But there's a slide number 2 that talks about the current project budget. And the original contract to Gelati was for $12.5 million. And with all the changes, the 2 prior changes and the current request for $1.9 million, the project is at a $16.5 million construction cost. The claim that these folks are readying for PG&E is on the order of $3.5 million. If we take $3.5 million off of 16.5, we're down to an amount that is only about $500,000 over the original budget. Excuse me, $1 million over the original budget. And we can't really take all 3.5 because there are some numbers in the claim, like for NVTA staff, additional NVTA staff time, that's not really apples to apples in the project cost. But about $3 million is hard cost that they hope to get back from PG&E. So if you take that $3 million off the 16.5, we're down to an amount that this project is over its original budget by something like 7.5%. If, to the point that was made by Member Pedroza, that might be tough getting all that money back from PG&E, even if we get half of it back, $1.5 million out of the $3 million, this project will be over budget by about 19%. And in most construction projects, going into a construction project with a 20% construction contingency is not a bad way to go. But your predecessors and we decided that for this project, it had to be a 5% contingency because we didn't have enough money to let the contract way back when, and the grant was going to expire because we had taken a lot longer to get the right-of-way and agreements between the landowners and the county about indemnification. So we're kind of up against the wall, and your predecessors in the Vine Trail said, let's kind of just squint really hard and hope they're going to hit the budget. In retrospect, they hit a budget that was 20% larger than the original contract. And if we had a 20% contingency, a lot of this angst, is my feeling, would be a lot less. We wouldn't be necessarily trying to go after contractors or go after design firms or have to worry about, PG&E. It would have been a more typical project, but it wasn't. And I do hope that we get money back from PG&E. And anything above half of the claim, I would say, is kind of puts us back within the normal constituency for a construction project. So the second thing I will say is that we are not asking you to come up with all the money. We, as the Vine Trail, have been the largest funder of the matching funds for the trail, as shown on slide 5. We have contributed $3.7 million. That $3.7 million does not account for another $1.8 million that we have paid outside of the contract for right-of-way acquisition, for the eco counters, for the shelters, for two electronic gates at one property, for 120 feet of fencing that came up after the contract was let. So we think, and this is money coming from our community, saying that this is important for us, coming directly out of their their own pockets through their generosity. And I can say that we are prepared to put up our $475,000 for our share of this overrun. And we hope to get some or all of it back from PG&E too. And then I guess the third thing and final thing that I would say to Member Sedgley is I think we have learned a little bit more about how to run these big projects. We are in engineering for the segment between Yountville and St. Helena. We have led an engineering contract. It is to Kimley Horn, a nationally recognized high capability engineering firm that has a little more resources than our local firm that handled that was the prime on this particular section. So I think up front we have more adults in the room, I think the phrase was, to make sure that we understand what the costs are going to be up front. Now, they're saying that the costs are a lot higher. It's a $7.5 million contract to do the engineering of this 11-mile segment. And the price tag that they're projecting in dollars in 2027 and 2028 dollars with a 30% contingency is more like $3.5 million a mile instead of $2.5 million a mile. So it's not time to make the discussion and to have the decision about how to make that funding. But I think that the new firm has capabilities. We're much more aware of having the appropriate contingency in place so that we don't come back to you and kind of hit you with the Chinese water torture, you know, one piece after another. The next time around, this group is going to be much better informed about what the real costs are going to be. But I started with this, I'm going to end with this. The result is glorious. That our trail ambassadors, our head trail ambassadors, that says he has not seen more smiles per mile than on the St. Helena to Calistoga segment. And that on the opening day and almost every day since then, we're seeing 500 people using that trail, where we might have seen 50 bicyclists using the trail beforehand. And then the other thing I would say about those people is that we know from the Oakville section that 70% of the people that are using that trail have a home zip code in Napa Valley. So this is about making an amenity available to our community that does take a big upfront cost, but is going to be around for 100 years. And the cost to maintain a mile of trail for 100 years is less than half the cost that it took to build it. And the Vine Trail is committed to providing to the jurisdictions 50% of that funding, $15,000 a mile per year. We're ready and able and willing and have already entered into contracts to fund $7,500 per mile per year, adjusted for inflation. So this is a wonderful asset. I'm sorry that we have to come to you and ask for more money right at the 11th hour, 59 minutes, but rest assured that your investment is appreciated by the community and is valuable and being used by the community. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Anything online? All right. Well, I appreciate that. I think it's a point well made, and I do believe that this is an asset that will actually play into transportation. With e-bikes and, well, or even without e-bikes, the ability to go from one end of the valley to the other will be viable. And that will also tie into jobs at some point. So I think it's a real asset. But with that.
Thank you. I agree that it's an asset and it already is tying into jobs, at least for us up Valley, when you can get to some places safely. Of course, that'll be improved once we can connect actually safely through St. Helena. And it really has been transformational for our community. I'm out there on the trail. It's not only who you might think it is. When you're out there, I've been surprised at the number of people and the kinds of people that are out there. And I just couldn't be happier with it for what it's done for our community. Living there, it's just made it seem a lot bigger to live in St. Helena and have access to so many other places that are along the trail, and also just to see in the future how people are going to be able to get places, both students going to schools more safely, and then also all of the different wineries, whether you're visiting them or you work there. It just opens up what we want to do in terms of our climate goals with having more people use bikes and walking and get outside and have that kind of lifestyle. So I agree. I think part of the problem with the pain of this money is that it keeps coming back to us. When I think about that contingency, I'm grateful for that information because that makes sense to me. We see big budgets often and how the construction costs keep going up and up. And this is one of those cases. So I'm very happy that we can have a claim against PG, not happy that we had to live through it and don't have the money up front, but happy that we actually are going to be able to recoup those numbers when you look and see what a difference it's going to make. As long as we get that back, this will be feel a lot less painful for all of us. So we got to get this done. We got to finish the Vine Trail. The work's already done and do the right thing.
Very well. Director Williams.
Thank you. If you could just educate me a little bit more. So when the Vine Trail work continues down Valley, south of St. Helena and so on, will the Up Valley cities be obligated to participate if there are overruns in that case?
I don't anticipate so unless you elect to participate.
And then the notice of completion that extinguishes the Up Valley City's obligation, that is referenced to that section, that segment of the trail, or to the entire project?
The notice of completion would close out the contract that NVTA has let with Gelati Construction. It's kind of an assumption that I made that it would, I guess, sunset your agreement. but we could look at a formal termination if that is what.
I can look at what the contract says about closing up and whether there's any ongoing maintenance costs contemplated in there or anything like that. So I can follow up with you and everyone else for that matter on what those funding agreements say.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. And Director Eisenberg.
Hi, I just want to make sure that my previous comments weren't misconstrued. I have nothing but appreciation for the NVTA staff and the Napa Vine Trail Coalition for the work they did to make the Vine Trail what it is. And as I said, I'm a frequent user. My only point is that that the utilities, private businesses have an obligation to fulfill their MOUs, fulfill their contracts. And if they don't, it should not be the municipalities, the jurisdictions that should suffer. That's it.
Good point. Thank you. Director McGee-Cant.
Thank you. I'd just like to be educated, the portion south of St. Helena and north of Yountville, where's that funding coming from?
If the board feels it's appropriate, I'm going to defer to the Vine Trail Coalition on this.
Is this agenda? I just want to, I don't believe this is on the agenda or it's not, it's another segment, right?
It is.
Are you referring to another? So we could probably address this at another meeting when it's agendized.
Okay.
But yeah.
Or we could
Just
just
feeling
chat
like I
after the,
should know
yeah,
that.
we can chat after the meeting.
Okay.
We can share what we know.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no other comments, board or public, we're looking for one motion to approve the three elements, the construction claim settlement agreement with Gelati Construction Company for 1.1 million, to approve an additional 1.9 million in construction funds, which covers that 1.1 million and 800,000 for additional closeout costs. And then lastly, to adopt a resolution authorizing the executive director to issue change orders for the construction amounts that we've identified of just under $4 million. So I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
Quick
Unless
comment,
you had a comment
and then I
first?
will make that
Okay.
motion. I want to thank the Vine Trail Coalition to make sure you know you're thanked and in the perspective we should have is we're getting this major community investment and asset for very, very little local public dollar, right? So let's be thankful for that and what we're being given by the efforts of the Vine Trail Coalition. So with that, I will happily make the motion to approve the three requested items.
Thank you.
Second, Garcia.
All right. We have a motion by Gregory, a second by Garcia to approve that motion. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we move to 11.4, a resolution 2412 authorizing the executive director to grant an easement along Devlin Road and Sheehy Court to the county of Napa for the Vine Trail project.
Yeah, this came up just because we've been working with the Vine Trail Coalition on that segment and the county for future grants. And I don't have the authority to say that we would grant the easement along those. And instead, I wrote a letter saying that you have been supportive of it. This would just allow us to say that in future grants that we would be able to grant an easement to the county. And there is an exhibit in the packet that shows exactly where that is. It would run across along Devlin Road, the frontage property that's right at Sheehy Court.
Okay.
And maybe the county's willing to pay $1.9 million for it.
It's worth an inquiry. All right, thank you very much. Any questions from the board? Any comments from the public? Nope. Chuck needs to, yeah.
So yes, we're working on another section. We've applied for a grant to connect the south end of Napa Pipe to Airport Road. That's a 3-mile gap in the Vine Trail, the last large gap after the 11 miles between Yountville and St. Helena. And Kate was very generous in providing a letter of support for that grant. It doesn't obligate you. This motion shows a further level of support, but also does not obligate you because you cannot sign, an easement agreement cannot be recorded until after CEQA is done on the project. So this is just indicating your approval subject to, the completion of CEQA and everything that's involved in that. So you'll see this again at the time when the actual easement agreement would be signed post CEQA.
Okay, very good. Director Chateau.
Oh, I
Oh.
didn't realize it was still on. This one to me is an easy one. We can move forward. There's a motion. I'll second.
All right. We have a motion by Pedrosa, a second by Chateau to approve Resolution 24-12, authorizing a grant of an easement. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And we're now on to 11.5 Vine Transit update. And 2 people can be excused to go to another meeting, apparently. One person's leaving earlier than the other one. Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Chair Joseph, members of the board. Rebecca Shank, Program Manager for Public Transit, and you'll be happy to know what this item is informational only, so no more decisions have to be made today. So we'll be covering, and Laura will pull up a presentation, the previous quarter, the fourth quarter of fiscal year 23-24. So that would be April, May, and June. The only kind of reason for a little bit of delay here is that this was originally a July item, which is, as you remember, we didn't cover. So I'll be giving you kind of those updates at the end because it is the end of the fiscal year, plus a little further updates from now. Kind of the first thing I wanted to talk about is our outreach efforts. Then I'll talk a little bit more about the regional efforts from the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and all of the other transit agencies that make up the Bay Area. Our most recent August 11 schedule changes that corresponded with the start of school, and then our favorite topic, ridership. So going kind of 2 slides because we're going to go ahead and talk about how we created some promotional videos. We created really 2 that we're going to show you today. And I really shouldn't say promotional in a way. It's just trying to understand how the system works. So particularly how to ride the Vine, how to ride fixed route. And I think in a way the videos kind of speak to itself. And then we also have a second video on how to do Vine Go, which is a little more complicated process because it's not only the riding process, but making sure you're eligible to begin with. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Laura. It's about a 3-minute video on how to ride the Vine. And we've been distributing this on our social media, on our website, to our funding partners, et cetera. This is the first time we really had something available like this.
And today, we'll guide you through what you can expect when using the bus to travel in and around Napa Valley. Printed schedules can be found at any transit center, your local library, or aboard your bus. You can also access schedules and route maps online. When reading the schedule, you will find the lettered routes operate solely within the city of Napa, while numbered routes connect Napa to the Bay Area with transfers to BART, Amtrak, and San Francisco Bay Ferry. Call or use the Ride the Vine app to request on-demand shuttles in Calistoga, Yountville, St. Helena, and American Canyon. Next, we'll use the timetable to locate your stop. The timetable indicates major stops along your route and tells you what time the bus is scheduled to arrive. Locate the nearest stop to you by viewing the route map and navigating to an indicated stop. When your bus arrives, you can stay seated or wave to the driver to indicate your intention to board. If you have a bicycle, you can load it on the bike rack in the front of the bus by pulling the rack down, loading the bike, and flipping up the lever to secure your bike. All Vine transit vehicles can accommodate wheelchairs. To pay, tap your preloaded flipper card to the reader or insert the exact fare in coins and bills, since your driver cannot provide change. Children under 6 ride for free. A Clipper card can be purchased online at vinetransit.com or in person at the Scottsville Gateway Transit Center. Alternatively, you can use Apple Wallet or Google Wallet to instantly purchase and set up a new digital Clipper card. When boarding, simply tap your phone to the reader to pay your fare using your digital Clipper card. The Clipper card can be used across all 27 Bay Area transit systems. Once you're on, find a seat that works for you. Keeping in mind, the seats closest to the front of the bus are reserved for seniors, those with disabilities, or pregnant passengers. Please be mindful to yield your seat if a senior, disabled, or pregnant passenger boards. Once seated, let your skilled driver navigate you through the NAPA area. As you notice your stop approaching and you are ready to get off, simply pull the cord or verbally notify the driver. The cords are located along all windows on the bus. Once pulled, you will see the stop requested sign light up at the front of the bus. Once the bus has stopped, feel free to exit through either the front or rear doors. If you plan to transfer to another route, you may request a transfer pass from your driver as you exit. Transfers are valid for 1 hour. And just like that, you have arrived, making your travels through Napa Valley enjoyable and stress-free. If you have questions or need more assistance, reach out online or contact the Vine Customer Service Office at 707-251-2800. Thank you for choosing Vine Transit. Happy travels.
Great. And so then we have just one more on VineGo, kind of similar time, just about those 3 minutes.
Embark on a journey with VineGo, your trusted companion in accessible transportation within the beautiful vistas of Napa County. By providing increased mobility and freedom, we're weaving the fabric of community from ride to ride. Eligibility extends to most Napa County residents who find themselves limited by the barriers presented in fixed route transit. For every trip, whether it's to the store, visiting a friend, or going to a doctor's appointment, our accessible vehicles and compassionate drivers ensure you arrive with ease.
Because it is very simple to use. It's, you call, you schedule your pickup, all you have to do is have your time and your time frame of when you want to come back.
We blanket Napa County with care, providing thousands of rides to vulnerable community members each year. Our promise? Timely, safe, and reliable service wherever you call home in our dedicated service area.
So we take you to and from your doctor's appointment, lab, eye, dental. But our seniors need more services. They want to be able to go to the grocery store. They have an event that they would like to go to. They may want to go visit a family member or a friend. And that's where VineGo comes in. They're able to go to their door, pick them up and drive them to their destination. And they have that freedom with VineGo.
Joining VineGo is a breeze. Start by filling out and submitting the VineGo application, available either on paper or online. Next, a friendly paratransit representative will give you a call to discuss your transportation needs, including whether or not a personal care attendant is needed. Once approved, you'll receive your VineGo ID card in the mail, and you're ready to go. Reserve your spot up to 1 week in advance over the phone so that we may accommodate your schedule and plan ahead for the best experience. Affordability is key at VineGo, with fares and passes designed for your budget. Plus, your well-being is our top priority, with rigorous health and safety protocols always in place.
It makes me feel wonderful when adults are able to get their freedom back that they thought they had lost. VineGo restores freedom.
Ride VineGo, connecting you to the places and people you love. Reach out for assistance to get going today.
Thanks. So hopefully customer service will get a few less questions. We tried to basically all the questions we usually get and have to answer to consolidate them into these 2 videos. Next, just wanted to touch on the next slide, some other outreach events we've been doing in each of your jurisdictions, including doing extra service into the evenings, things for like American Canyon, Meet Me in the Streets, the summer concert series that was recently in St. Helena, and evening winery events in Calistoga. And definitely encourage you, if you know of events happening in your area, we think additional transit service may be necessary or would help facilitate that event, please let us know. And one of my favorite events, and you'll see there, is actually childcare, in that the 5-year-olds were making their way downtown on the Route E, transferring to the Route C. I was a little nervous there, so I went ahead and went out to make sure the transfer went well. But right, we have these large vehicles, we have a lot of capacity, and it's a good group option. On the next slide, what we'll talk about is our transit month, which Kate had mentioned in her update. This is something that's happening all across the Bay Area, and it's 27 agencies. So we will be having a free day on the 27th. Once we meet again in October, we'll have some data on that. It will be interesting to see, right, when you have one free day, for example, what that means in terms of ridership, and we'll see if it has an effect there. We've been playing games in terms of, okay, people taking photos of themselves on the bus, and we have some fun prizes there. We're doing some cross commute with a V commute, which Danielle had talked earlier about that program, and then taking buses to many school visits. And those have been our main outreach events as of late. And on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit more on regional efforts, and you'll see a couple of things. So there was an MTC snapshot survey. So they do this every 5 years, and the last time they did it was in 2019. So we have pre-COVID numbers. This is our first real survey post-COVID, and in this case, it's 309 surveys that were completed within the city of Napa. And so MTC and their team did a good job of getting Spanish feedback on this one at 34%, which is much more than we would normally see. And then you see Tagalog coming in at 2%. So what we kind of found on the next slide is a couple of things. So one, the people that they happen to survey are often riding this service. They're riding between 3 and 7 days a week on average. Very few say, are doing this less than 1 per month. And then you'll see on the survey, something else I wanted to emphasize was changes to increase transit use. So that next slide, you'll see a series of boxes, right? And this is the same thing we saw in 2019 in terms of that top box is more frequent service, right? It means opposed to that bus coming every hour, they wanted to come every 30 minutes. Opposed to coming every 30 minutes, maybe they wanted to come every 20 minutes, things like that. The reliability of that service coming in kind of second, making sure that we continue to invest in vehicles, continue to purchase vehicles and make sure that they're ready. And then we have enough staffing on hand, and then expanded service hours, especially probably into the evening in the city of Napa. So then after those top 3, we do have lower fares that do come in at 17.5%, shorter travel times, and then everything that comes in at less than 10%, right, are things we often talk about, but maybe aren't as important, at least to this subset of riders, right? They weren't as concerned about transfers. They weren't as concerned about, say, cleaner vehicles or safer vehicles, things that we see maybe at other larger transit agencies don't seem to be as big as of a concern for us. So this is something that I think was an important and in a way interesting to see that, right, more frequent service is still kind of a #1 priority. On the next slide, something else I wanted to touch on was just the future use of transit. So the question was basically, do you intend to ride transit more? The 42.5%, about the same, 48% or less, coming in under 10. So my rosy conclusion of this is 91% can say they'll ride it as much as they're riding it currently or more, but right, that we're not seeing, oh, I never want to ride this again, I think, which is good. And then in terms of reason for trip, we still do have work as the kind of #1 dominant reason for the trip. Switching gears a little bit regionally, we have been trying to tap into MTC's different resources that they have in terms of schedule coordination. So this is just basically saying that working with MTC, trying to get that BART transfer to the 29, which would take you up to Napa, to the 10, which would take you to Calistoga, trying to make sure we have all of those transfers in either that ideal or okay range, none too short, none too long. So we've been participating there. On the next slide, 2, you'll see a big emphasis has been at the Metropolitan Transportation Commission about the need for signal priority and other transit priority things, think slip lane or bus only lane. And so kind of the impetus for this is that if the bus is stuck in the same traffic as the car, it costs us more annually. And on the next slide, you'll see they took a look at our service in Napa in particular and our routes. And basically the travel times on the left are looking at miles per hour has really decreased in terms of the speed at which we're able to move through all of our jurisdictions. And so that comes with an increased cost to us. And so right now we're running a program, and we'll have some results coming up in October to do transit signal priority in American Canyon. And that might be something we'd be looking at doing in other locations as well. Finally, we were going to, on the next slide, just talk a little bit more about maybe a need for additional transit priority in the city of Napa. After we kind of do this initial American Canyon pilot, we'd like to continue that conversation, especially along maybe that Trancas and Jefferson corridor. And then finally, on our schedule changes, right, we had a schedule change as part of August the 11th. So that is the new Napa Valley College stop. That was before we put in our new shelter. But as Kate mentioned, that's really going to help our service to the college, especially as you'll see in the next slide with that new housing that they have there. And we're also hoping to have a student fee that would start January 1st. So we think that will really drive ridership. And then our favorite topic, as I said, ridership. So what we'll see in terms of ridership updates, and you can move to the next two slides, is that what we're looking at is kind of total ridership change as a percentage. So we know where we fell during COVID, and we've continued to have ridership increases, obviously not as high as the first coming out of COVID, but we're continuing to increase year over year. And that's kind of one of the goals that we have for each fiscal year thereafter, is to continue that increase as we kind of make this slow progress back to where we may have been pre-COVID. And then finally, on the next slide, you'll see just kind of the history of any individual routes. So when we look at it, we look at quarter over quarter, right, going back to the third quarter of 23-24, and then each of the prior fourth quarters. So we're showing progress, and in this latest quarter is the best fourth quarter that we've had since the pandemic. And we'll try to continue on those patterns, even though if it is incremental in nature. I did see a headline on LA Transit. They said, okay, they've had 20 straight months, right, of increased month over month, year over year ridership. So they're trying to change that context. And we could say, for example, we had about 8 consecutive months of year over year, month over month ridership. So maybe that's something that we'll talk about. LA is also, you know what I mean, below pre-COVID levels, but that's kind of what they're emphasizing in the way we want to start thinking about our messaging. And on the next slide, it will just touch on kind of the same thing in terms of our VineGo, our Calistoga shuttle, St. Helena shuttle, Yountville B, and American Canyon Transit. With VineGo just showing very, very steady increase. Every quarter you look, we are seeing an increased need for that. And as you kind of saw in the video, that was just a typical day when we go to Providence. So definitely wasn't actors only. Those are people that we're taking to adult daycare programs each day. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Very good report. Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, any public comment? Right.
Yes, a question, Director.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the report. And we have millions of visitors, tourists coming here every year. And I don't see a category, you know, unless they're in the 10%, you know, with reasons for use. So, and I think I understand why, but for all those folks who are coming in, 3.5 million or whatever it is, apparently they're not using the Vine Transit very much, or are those people captured? Another statistic?
Sure. Well, I think probably where they would fall, they weren't going to work, right? They're on vacation. But probably there wasn't a specific, oh, I'm on vacation, because they are looking at all Bay Area ones that they're like doing social or recreation, like, oh, hey, I'm going to a winery, or they're doing, say, shopping might be something, or they may have had multiple responses where they're like, oh, I'm doing whatever, shopping and recreation together. And so shopping being 9%, social and recreation being 11%. So it could be wrapped up in that component, but right, as part of this regional survey, they didn't have a tourist.
So we're speculating about how many of the tourists are
are
using it.
Calistoga, we do each month, we get a report. Now it's a little, it's subjective, but basically if the driver picks you up and you're going from a hotel to the castle, you fall into the, you know what I mean, the tourist category. And so we know in Calistoga that it's more about 50-50.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Any other comments? All right. Well, this is information only, so thank you very much. And now we move to our last open session item, 11.6, state and local legislative update. Director Miller.
Thank you very much. Just a few items. You know, it looks like we're going to be heading on the federal side towards a continuing resolution, which, just as a reminder, affects how we receive our federal transit money, which we use for operations on the Vine Transit system. So we will only get it for the periods that the Congress authorizes the budget. So that becomes a problem over time, and also having to just do extra work to get the increments. I had told you that I was going to provide you with an overview of state propositions and local measures. Probably you know a lot about them already at this point, but Proposition 4 authorizes the state to issue up to $10 billion in general obligation bonds. Half of that will go towards water and wildfire prevention. The balance will go towards climate change mitigation initiatives in state parks, farm and ag lands. I believe the state propositions require that we pass it by a supermajority, right? Two-thirds vote. Proposition 5 reduces the voter threshold to 55% for local agencies to issue bonds for affordable housing and public infrastructure. A no vote means that certain local bonds related to property taxes would continue to need a two-thirds vote. Locally, Measure U, I think you know what Measure U is, but for the sake of advertising and because members of the public could be listening, the existing sales tax on, this would replace the Measure T, the existing sales tax for transportation. The NVTA 30-year ballot initiative would allow bond issuance against future half-cent sales tax revenues. Again, not a general obligation bond. Makes provisions for the highway projects, memorializes the formula distribution for local streets and roads, and grants additional flexibility to jurisdictions for other projects. The measure requires a two-thirds voter approval to pass. Measure G is the City of Napa's 1-cent sales tax increase to fund city services, including road repair, parks, recreation programs, water infrastructure, police and mental health services, as well as fire protection. The measure requires a 50% plus one vote to pass. And then measures A1 and A2 are the two City of St. Helena measures. A1 requests voter approval for the city to become a charter city, which is necessary for A2, which would increase the real estate transfer tax by 1.5%. For sales between 1 and 5 million and 3% for sales over 5 million. The measure requires 50% plus one voter approval to pass. Measure B was placed on the ballot by Noble Health and other local residents, and if approved by 50% plus one votes, would amend the city's general plan and zoning code to permit development of a 56-room resort hotel. And that concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? All right, well, we've already handled closed sessions, so we're on a roll. Conference, excuse me. You messed me up with the 12 and 12. All right, future agenda items. Director Sedgley isn't here, but he did raise the idea about having a discussion about some kind of a free fare or discounted fare and what it might cost and how it might help. And then certainly a discussion on the executive recruitment. Those are two items for sure that I'd certainly recommend that we throw on in the kitty. Director McKee can't.
If I may, I'd like to add a discussion about the possibility of GPS trackers on the buses. So when, for example, the 10 is running late, dispatch can give a more precise answer, because as the buses are running one stop per hour, if people are waiting 40 minutes for a bus to show up, they might as well leave and come back on the next hour for the timely bus.
Okay.
So
Do we have any tracking devices now on our buses?
Yeah, we have a CAD AVL system, and we've been having problems with the routers and also The other challenge is that we just don't have consistent connections, which is not something that we have control over. It's just about what bandwidth is available. But that information is available on everybody's phone. And then certainly dispatch can provide that information if you call.
I heard from constituents, some actually that were in the promotional video and are frequent riders, that they are like 2 times this month, the bus has been down and dispatch has been super helpful, but they're not able to get reliable information to plan. So just.
I think as maybe part of the next quarterly transit report, it would be really good to delve into some of our technology problems, and that is definitely one of them. So, and then we can provide a more comprehensive perspective on both the challenges as well as what we're doing to make the system work better. And just an FYI, we're not the only system that struggles with this, and our ongoing challenges may result in having to buy a new CAT EVL system. So
then it should be on the
Yeah.
agenda. It seems like with reliability being 29%
Yeah.
and some way to push messaging to the apps. Because as I understand it from frequent writers, they're not getting that messaging.
Okay, so the app is for the shuttle services only, so that's another separate issue. That's not a CAT AVL system, but I think what we can do is make sure that we provide a very comprehensive report on that at the next transit update.
Thank you.
Yeah, which is like probably next month, right, Rebecca? So next month.
Director Pedrosa?
Just a quick comment, Chair, because I think you mentioned it was awkward earlier, and it was. I think just moving agenda processing, I just want us to be mindful. I think you're doing a great job. But I think when we start getting in the habit of moving agendas, it does create some unpredictability and gamemanship to go on. Not that that was going on today, full
No.
disclosure. But I just want to be mindful because the public does have expectations. It's published agenda. Yes, it does go. We can change it. But if that becomes a habit, then I think we should just move items so it's predictable for the public and for those of us that might be late on occasion.
Okay.
So I would just, words of wisdom from someone that's leaving.
Point well taken on that, Director Pedrosa. As I've mentioned, I have a tendency to try to be accommodating. In this case, I thought it would work out because I didn't know Director Alessio had a prior commitment. So I stepped in it and have learned. So I'm hoping my new commitment is the next agenda will be normal and typical. I may or may not achieve that, but that's my goal. All righty, so we've got the free fare option, we have the executive recruitment, and then we'll integrate better tracking, well, the whole technology issue in our next Vine Transit update. Anything else? Then I believe we can say we're done at 3:48.